How hard is Final Fantasy X's Platinum? On the surface, it doesn't seem to be too bad. It's a 5 out of 10 in difficulty that takes roughly 110 hours over one playthrough. Essentially a B rank in Farruski clan rating. However, behind this mediocre difficulty rating, hiding in the background lurks countless hours of grinding that'll leave you more drained than a tired snail walking home from a funeral, numerous super bosses that can destroy your party faster than my wife's ass getting smacked whenever she bends down, and minigames more broken than the McDonald's ice cream machine. And according to the community, I'm not far off being right. This might be controversial, but the 110 hour mark to get this platinum is extremely ambitious. Obviously there's a high chance that I'm wrong about this, so let me know down below in the comments how long it took you to platinum Final Fantasy X. Don't get me wrong, this game is ranked highly among my personal list of favourites. It's the game that caused me to fall in love with the series, as well as JRPGs in general, and I'm not the only one with this opinion. With that said, I'm here to mostly talk about the platinum rather than the game itself. I've played it on the PS2, on the PS4, and I'll be playing it again on the PS5. As a result, I knew exactly what I was getting myself into, which only raised my dread that much more. There's a full origin story surrounding me and Final Fantasy X, but we'll touch on that a bit later on. For now, we'll be concentrating on what I have left to do. When I originally started this platinum mission back in 2015, I popped about 50% of the trophies. Only 12 trophies including the platinum stood between me and that glorious digital reward on my profile. 3 gold, 5 silver, and 3 bronze. Therefore, I start this mission with 22 out of 34 trophies already obtained. This would have been a lot quicker if the majority of my brain capacity wasn't being occupied by trying to become a Super Saiyan one day. This is because I didn't upload my save, as usual. Consequently, this meant I had to start the game from scratch and follow 5 long steps. Step 1 was to complete the story, a glorious action-packed journey full of emotion. Step 2 was to obtain all the Aeons, godlike creatures we can summon that dish out high levels of damage, including one in particular that'll save you a lot of time and effort if you're planning on obtaining this platinum, even though it stinks like cheese. We'll get to him later on. Step 3 was to obtain all the celestial weapons for each party member and fully upgrade them. These are the best weapons in the game. Step 4 was to complete the sphere grid for all party members, a mammoth task only for those truly dedicated to the grinding gods. And finally, step 5 was to dispatch all the super bosses, which realistically would be near impossible without the previous steps. However, with a fully maxed out party, it should be a piece of cake. What a foolish thought. Additionally, there are also a few miscellaneous trophies left to pop, but I can work towards these alongside the main steps. I am surprised there's only one missable trophy in this game, which in my experience is a rare occurrence in JRPGs. It's called Master Linguist, and is rewarded by collecting all 26 Albed primers, little manuals scattered around the world that translate the Albed language spoken frequently throughout the game, one letter at a time. It's something that I personally don't need to worry about because I popped this back when I first played the game, but it was worth a mention in case you're tackling or thinking of tackling this platinum. I used the guide back then, and honestly, I recommend you do the same. Now drop my beat! Did anybody even miss the beat drop? Anyway, on to step 1. I'll give you a quick breakdown of the storyline and important events because let's be honest, it's a pretty meaty story about sacrifice, religion, love, and major daddy issues.
I hate you, Dad.
Also, considering I've already completed it, there won't be any trophy pops. And I know you all love them sweet trophy pops. For anyone who's new to the series, rest assured, each installment brings a fresh new story as well as gameplay changes, so you won't need to play Final Fantasy 1 to 9 to understand what the hell's going on here. Additionally, I don't want to spoil it for anyone who hasn't played the game. I know I don't usually do this, but this game has a special place in my heart, and I wouldn't want to take the experience away from anybody. With that said, if you want to avoid any story-related spoilers, you can skip to this timestamp here. If you're still here at this point, it's because you either don't mind being spoiled, or you forgot the video was playing in the background whilst you're doing something else. Either way, let's get to it. The story mainly revolves around Tidus, or Tidus. Different people pronounce it in different ways. For all I know, he could be called Bob, since you can change his name. Anyway, we follow the main character on his journey in Spira, which we eventually find out it's a spiral of death. It'll make more sense later on. Tidus is a young lad with major daddy issues, and famous star of the blitzball team from the city called Zanarkand. Blitzball is the main sport in this world. Think of it as if water polo and football had a baby, the playing ground is a giant human fish tank, and all the players had dolphin DNA in them, because the length of time these guys can be submerged underwater without coming up for air is astounding. Straight from the bat, we get one of the most badass cutscenes of all time. The music, the scenery, the CGI for its time, everything is just so godly it's enough to create a religion of its own. Let's return to my origin story with Final Fantasy X, and it all stemmed from this single cutscene. The year was 2001. I was nothing more than a young Farruski living in Portugal at the raw age of 11. Back then I had very little gaming variety outside of Pez, Tekken, and Playboy the Mansion. When I discovered this masterpiece at a friend's house, I was truly mind blown. From that day on, my Saturdays consisted of waking up, watching the Dragon Ball marathon on TV, meeting up with my friend for a quick kickabout in the street, and then getting immersed into Final Fantasy X. I've been in love with this game ever since. Of course, since the game wasn't mine at the time, I only saw snippets, but it was still enough to keep me hooked. As soon as I was able to get a copy of my own, I played it to my heart's content. When the remaster was released on PS4 back in 2015, I was fully committed to getting the platinum. However, my dedication wasn't as strong as it is these days, and I ended up giving up after finishing the story. But now, I'm more than ready to give this game the honor it deserves. This song does things to me that I'm not allowed to say on camera. And it's not just this song. The soundtrack to this game as a whole is just amazing. Definitely worth including in a Spotify playlist. Now that we've covered who Tidus is, as well as my backstory, I can give you a quick rundown of the events that take place. During the Blitzball game, a big angry flying whale called Sin shows up and destroys Zanarkand. Guess it's not a big fan of Blitzball. We also meet Auron here, a mature man that reminds me a lot of a grumpy father figure. He's one of our main party members and an absolute badass. He gives Tidus a sword, and shortly after, they are both sucked into a wormhole by Sin. Tidus wakes up alone in Spira 1,000 years into the future, which he doesn't know yet, but we do, and here is where the main story takes place. I'm not going to go through every detail of the story because this would end up being a 4-hour long video. Instead, I'm just going to cover the main points and characters we meet along the way. Tidus eventually meets Riku, an Albed with a bubbly personality, like a little sister of sorts, or a girl next door if that's your thing. She's also another party member we'll be able to control later on. While Tidus is on Riku's ship, she tells him that the Zanarkand was destroyed 1,000 years ago, but Tidus doesn't believe her. The man's in major denial. Meanwhile, Sin attacks and causes Tidus to go overboard and get sucked into yet another wormhole. This time Tidus wakes up on a sunny beach where he meets Waka, a happy-go-lucky religious and slightly racist toward the Albed ginger guy, whose Blitzball team hasn't won a single game. Ever. You got nothing to smile about, buddy, but I admire your positivity. Waka quickly warms up to Tidus due to almost being decapitated by a shot, as well as his resemblance to Chapu, Waka's younger brother that was killed by Sin. In this initial area called Besaid, we also meet Lulu, who is another character we can control in our party. She's a big sister of sorts who is respected by all due to her personality? Yuna, a young summoner possessing an eye of each colour, which sadly isn't the Sharingan. She's daughter to Braska, the last summoner that defeated Sin 10 years ago. This has some pretty big shoes to fill. Oh yeah, Sin keeps coming back even after you kill it. It'll make sense later on. Yuna's goal is to follow in her dad's footsteps and defeat Sin. To do so, she needs to go on a pilgrimage travelling the world, praying to Yu Yevon in different temples to obtain different Aeons, godlike creatures that assist us in battle and crucial in defeating Sin. An additional role for summoners is to perform ascending, which is essentially to guide the souls of the dead to the far planes, a physical place where loved ones can see their lost ones. Any souls that aren't sent eventually become fiends, the monsters we fight throughout the world. And Kimari, a lion humanoid with a bad attitude who attacks us for absolutely no reason. There's not really much more to say about him. Now that we've met all our party members who all are or eventually become Yuna's guardians, we can move on to the pilgrimage. Throughout the game, we explore numerous different areas that all feel pretty unique. I say exploring very loosely because the game is pretty linear. However, it doesn't take anything away from it. God, this world is beautiful. We also meet a bunch of side characters like priests, crusaders, and other summoners that fill this world with personality. Everyone has their rightful place in this world, and it's beautiful. Now, we already know that Sin is the main antagonist of the game. Throughout Tidus' time in Spira, he shows up unannounced, like a Jehovah's Witness during mealtimes, and goes on a rampage of destruction. Additionally, there's another entity that shows up unannounced, this one more like a bailiff. Seymour, an annoying maester, pretty much the Pope's son, that has an unhealthy obsession with Yuna and immortality. We'll cover more of Seymour later on. During our time with Yuna, she reveals that Auron and Jecht, Tidus' father, were Braska's guardians. Furthermore, we meet Auron shortly after this, who reveals that Jecht is Sin. Obviously, Tidus doesn't take the news well and throws a paddy. Yuna tries to cheer him up by advising him to fake laugh, and thus, the birth of the most cringy scene known to man was created. A bit further down the line, we reach Mihin High Road, Now, since Sin is still on his rampage of destruction and the people of Spira seem to have a lack of patience, the Al Bhed team up with the Crusaders to take their fight head on. Fair to say, it was a massive failure. When all is said and vaporized, Sin just swims away. Even further into the pilgrimage, during a river crossing, Yuna is kidnapped by the Al Bhed. This happens a few times throughout the story, and for good reason, but we'll get to that later on. At this moment in time, we just assume the Al Bhed are up to no good. In response, Tidus and Wakka destroy the Machina holding her captive, and save Yuna. When the gang reach dry land again, we find Riku, who gives us a nice little strip tease. And with that, our party is now fully complete. Soon after, we reach Guadosalam, like Jerusalem, but for Guados, and home to Seymour. Seymour shows off his wizard skills here and projects Zanarkand in all its glory 1,000 years ago. Additionally, he also proposes to marry Yuna, which seriously kicks off his obsessive boyfriend arc. Yuna decides to visit the far plane before making a decision, where we discover from Seymour's father that he was killed by his own son. When we eventually confront Seymour in the Makalanya temple, this man shows absolutely no remorse whatsoever, so we're forced to deliver justice. We won't have to worry about this obsessive ex-boyfriend anymore. As a result of killing a major religious figure, we're now branded as traitors and public enemy number 1. While escaping persecution, we find ourselves at the bottom of a lake, where Sin is just chilling above. Sin sends us through a wormhole once again, where this time we wake up in a desert. Luckily, it's where Riku's home is. However, when we arrive, we see nothing but destruction. We run through the chaos to save as many Al Bhed as possible and escape the fortress. Incidentally, Riku tells Tidus that Yuna will need to sacrifice herself to defeat Sin. This was the reason the Al Bhed kept trying to kidnap Yuna. The reason Sin keeps coming back is because he is reincarnated as the last guardian that was sacrificed alongside the summoner. After realizing he was the only one that didn't know this cold reality, he has a meltdown and lashes out at the others for keeping him in the dark.
But Yuna, she'd just smile.
This is another scene that's done to perfection. The music, the emotions, everything just hits you right in the feels. Among his anguish, he promises to find another way to defeat Sin, a way where Yuna wouldn't have to sacrifice herself. The party hop on a giant airship and make a very narrow escape. Using the airship, they track down Yuna in Bavel, where she's due to be wed to that sneaky, undead Jeffrey Dahmer acting psychopath. Seriously, even after death, this man still finds a way to carry on his stalkish behaviour. Well, not on my watch. The gang storm Bavel in sliding Sonic fashion while bullets are flying from all angles. I can only assume these gunmen are stormtroopers because their accuracy is appalling. When we finally reach Yuna, we manage to stop absolutely nothing. At least it gives time Yuna to escape by jumping off the edge of the building. Don't worry folks, that's Valafor to catch her while she falls. Sadly, the whole party gets captured anyway and put on trial for Seymour's murder. Despite having a very good case, it falls on deaf ears since all the other maesters are also undead. It's like an all-you-can-revive buffet. So, in conclusion, Sin appears every 10 years as a reincarnation of the previous guardian who was sacrificed to defeat it, and with the additional sacrifice of the summoner. Any unsent souls are reincarnated as fiends, you can visit your dead relatives in the far plane, and the major leaders of this world are all pretty much undead. This, ladies and gentlemen, is the reason Spira is known as the Spiral of Death. Nonetheless, we have a flying whale to kill, although Seymour stands in our way once again. In predictable supervillain style, he reveals his master plan to use Yuna's power to become the next Sin. Why the hell would he want to do that? This guy clearly has issues. Consequently, the party is resistant to his plan and is determined to stop him. In retaliation, Seymour transforms into his tombstone and attacks. After dispatching him once again, Yuna is technically now a widow. Or is she? After escaping Bavel and regrouping in Makalanya Woods, Tidus notices that Yuna's faith has been shaken by the revelations surrounding Yu Yevon. He alleviates her stress by advising her to fake laugh. Not really. He embraces her and gives her a big old smooch. Works every time. Up to this point, we notice the relationships between our party members growing throughout the story, especially one between Yuna and Tidus. We could tell there was an attraction from the start, but as time goes on, it just grew stronger and stronger. In this moment, the relationship truly reaches its peak. The scene is a bit cheesy, I know, but it just works. In my opinion, with the build-up of their relationship as well as all that's happened up to this point, it makes this scene so satisfying and beautiful, it could bring a tear to a glass eye. Despite Yuna's faith being shaken, she decides to carry on a pilgrimage for the sake of the people of Spira. We eventually reach Mount Gagazet, home to the Ronzo, where Kimahri is confronted by his kin. We discover he left his village long ago when Biron bested him in battle and broke off half his horn. Now several years later and leveled up from grinding, he faces Biran and Yenke to redeem himself. After the flawless victory, Kimahri earns back the respect of his people and is serenaded in the process. All is good in the snowy hood. Further up the icy cliffs, Seymour stands in our way. Again, this annoying Ted Bundy-like persistent obsessive soy boy just doesn't give up. After a 10-minute long cutscene, he transforms into Seymour Phlox. This is considered by many to be the hardest boss in the story, and for good reason. If you go into this fight unprepared like I did, be ready to sit through this long-ass cutscene every time, because for some unknown reason, this game doesn't let you skip cutscene. Quite honestly, it's the only issue I've got with this game. Anyway, once we finally vanquish Seymour, yet again, this major problem has been dealt with once and for all. Surely, there's no way he's coming back. Shortly after, the party finally reaches Zanarkand, a city in ruins from the destruction left behind by Sin 1,000 years ago, and the last chapter of the journey. Tidus has been in major denial up to this point, but after seeing the ruins with his own eyes, he starts his path to recovery, by going from denial to acceptance. The realization that this was the end of Yuna's journey also daunted on the rest of the party. However, as mentioned earlier, Tidus was committed to finding another way to defeat Sin. While venturing through the Zanarkand ruins, fireflies construct images from past pilgrimages. Deep within, we get a great bit of fan service. This half-naked entity is Yunalesca, the first summoner to overcome Sin by sacrificing her husband, Classy, yet another unsent soul whose role is to offer Yuna the final Aeon, believed to be the only way to defeat Sin. However, in order to obtain the final Aeon, Yuna would have to choose which of her guardians she would sacrifice. After a long period of consideration, Yuna chooses absolutely nobody! Yuna also believes there's another way to defeat Sin. In opposition to the group's decision and realizing the risk of ending the endless spiral of death, Yunalesca attacks the party. This is another hard fight consisting of 3 phases back to back. So once again, you better be well prepared, for you'll have to sit through a 15-minute cutscene before trying again. When all is said and done, we find Sin just outside the Zanarkand ruins, where he just walks away in disgust at his son. We've now reached the climax of the story. The plan? To kill Sin from the inside, an idea so crazy it just might work. With the knowledge that the Hymn of the Faith leaves Sin in a docile state, the party managed to convince the people of Spirit to sing together. A very similar tactic to Goku asking people for energy to form the Spirit Bomb, and I'm all for it. Now for this to work, Sin would need to be weakened, but he wasn't just going to float there and take it. Anyway, Sin blasts a series of energy balls ripping through Spira. In response, Sid starts by severing Sin's limbs one by one, followed by our party taking care of his forehead. Dazed and confused by the concussion, Sin plummets to the ground, destroying a portion of the city and causing mass casualties. Well, this was a bit of the opposite effect of saving lives. After a short while, Sin transforms into a serpent of sorts and comes face to face with the party. With a Hymn of the Faith in the background and the sight of Tidus, Sin's boredom increases, eventually causing him to open its giant mouth for a godly yawn, inhaling the party in the airship in. Mission accomplished. Within Sin, it's surprisingly beautiful. Oh no, not this guy again. Seriously, this man is annoyingly relentless. So annoying, in fact, it reminds me of the time I was having the best sex of my life, and then someone opened the coffin. He transforms yet again into another powerful form, although in vain, as we kill him one last time. Seriously, for real this time. In the core of Sin, we come face to face with Jecht, where Tidus continues his path to recovery from his daddy issues. Jecht begs Tidus to end it all, as he's starting to lose control, and shortly after, he turns into what in the Yevon holy hell this is. With his final Aeon form revealed, and alongside a soundtrack so good it would make Mike Tyson drop his blunt in awe, it was time to release Jecht from his hellish existence. After a grueling fight, Tidus and the others take the W. Additionally, we needed to call forth the Aeons to destroy Yevon. One by one, each Aeon is possessed and defeated. Furthermore, Tidus drops the huge bomb that he's a dream. Not just a dreamboat, but an actual dream. Once Yevon is defeated, Tidus will disappear. Still committed to the cause, the party press on. With the spiral of death finally broken, Auron is ready to be sent to the far plane. Yuna grants Auron's wish and performs ascending the Hymn and the Aeons. Meanwhile, in defeat, the world witnesses Sin explode in spectacular fashion, and Tidus starts to fade away, kicking off one of the most emotional and memorable scenes of my childhood. In my opinion, this is a great ending to an epic tale. Of course, like most, I would have wanted Yuna and Tidus to end up together, but this ending makes so much more sense. Well, ended up telling the whole story anyway. Guess I can't help myself. Regardless, with the story finished, step 1 was complete, and we can move on to step 2, where we'll kick off a stupidly grueling grinding journey. Naturally, I obtained all the mandatory Aeons throughout my time with the story by completing the Cloister of Trials for each one in various temples. Not quite sure why puzzle solving is essential in this religion, but we'll just go with it. We already have Valifor, a large avian creature notable for her dragon-like wings, Ifrit, a humanoid demonic-looking beast, Ixion, a unicorn-like horse with a long golden horn, Shiva, a slim feminine humanoid with a limited amount of clothing, and Bahamut, a large black dragon with enormous red wings. Additionally, there are a few bonus Aeons we can obtain, but we need to go a bit out of our way to find them. We start by visiting the Cavern of the Stolen Faith, where we get a bit of backstory for Lulu. In her younger years, she was the sole guardian to a summoner whom she let die in this cavern, an event that still haunts her to this day. On a happier note, we obtain Yojimbo after besting him in battle. The easiest way to do this is to inflict doom on him to ensure victory after 5 turns. The colossal ornamental katana-wielding samurai was at our service, after agreeing an acceptable fee, of course. Yojimbo is arguably the most powerful Aeon in the game because of his overdrive. And yes, this was the cheesy entity I mentioned earlier in the video. Zanmato will one-shot absolutely everything and anything in this game. The only gimmick is that his attacks are random depending on how much you pay him. You can obtain Yojimbo earlier in the game, but I had no need for his services until now. To obtain Anima, we first need to unlock Barge Temple, using the airship. You'll probably recognize this as it's the first area Tidus was teleported to at the beginning of the game. Equally, we can get some sweet moisty revenge. I obviously came in unprepared. Let's do that again with a proper preparation. With that flawless victory, it was time to obtain Anima. To do so, you would need to collect all destructive feared treasures from all Cloister of Trials. Luckily, I'd already done this, so all that was left to do was approach each statue to activate the door and receive an epic towering 2-part creature whose top half is heavily restrained, who is also Seymour's mother in a final Aeon form. Pretty deep stuff. Finally, to obtain the Magus Sisters, it was a bit more of a lengthier process. Firstly, we needed to obtain the Blossom Crown. To get this item, we needed to capture at least one of every monster in the Calmlands to unlock the monster arena. After that, we needed to capture at least one of every monster in Mount Gagazet. Monster capturing is a task that I'll be getting very familiar with later in the journey, but we'll circle back to this. Secondly, we need the Flower Scepter. To get this, we need to beat Belgamine's Aeons one by one. Luckily, we aren't locked to an Aeon at a time, so we can summon however many we need. Additionally, before each Aeon fight, Belgamine heals Yuna's Aeons. Kinda reminds me of that time Goku gave Cell a Zenzu Bean before Gohan fought him. Pretty stupid thing to do if you want to win a battle. Anyway, with that done, we can access the Chamber of the Faith and obtain the Magus Sisters, who resemble their incarnations from Final Fantasy IV, but wearing insectoid armor. We'll have to return here later on, but we'll get to that in a bit. Step 2 was now also complete, so on to Step 3. With our trump cards obtained, it was time to make sure our party packed a punch. As I mentioned earlier, the celestial weapons are the most powerful weapons in the game. However, when you first obtain them, they're as useful as chocolate kettles. To make them the best version of themselves, we need to upgrade them with steroids, or in the game's terms, celestial items. Luckily, throughout my playthrough, I collected every item I could, which saved me quite some time in the long run. However, it didn't save me from the actual tasks needed to earn said items, which are absolutely ludicrous. I'd recommend using a no encounters armor to make some of these tasks easier, that way you won't be interrupted by random fiends. You can obtain these weapons and upgrade items in any order you wish, but the order I obtain them here isn't that important. Despite this, to actually be able to obtain them, you need the Celestial Mirror. For this item, we'll need to win the Chocobo race at Remium Temple. Once we receive the Cloudy Mirror, we can head to the Macalania Woods, where a woman and a child have lost their husband. Once we find him, we return to the woman, who's now lost the child. Oh, Jesus Christ. Once we find the child, we can upgrade the Cloudy Mirror to the Celestial Mirror. And now, we can start our quest for the celestial weapons. The first weapon I went for was Tidus's Kalad Bowl. The weapon itself can be found in the Calmlands, however, there's a gatekeeper stopping you from obtaining it. To get this guy to move, you need to beat all the Chocobo related challenges with a trainer, as well as beat the trainer in a race. Now let me tell you, some of the challenges feel harder than farting quietly in a room full of people. For the first challenge, you need to reach the finish line with a Chocobo that controls the same way a shopping trolley with a damaged front wheel does. The second challenge sees you control the Chocobo normally, but you have Blitzballs thrown at you randomly. The third challenge sees the Blitzball split in 4, as well as seagulls homing in on you with the accuracy of a Heat Seeker missile. And finally, you need to race against the trainer and win by having a better time. Any balloons you catch reduce 3 seconds off the clock, and any birds that hit you add 3 seconds on the clock. Once all these challenges are complete, I was allowed to obtain the Celestial Weapon. For the upgrade items, I'd already found the Sun Crest on my playthrough, so I only needed the Sun Sigil. And I say only very loosely, because my god, was this torture. To get the Sigil, we need to race the trainer once again, but this time, win with a finish time of 0. I mean 0, which meant very little room for error. Now I don't know if it was me or if I had stick drift on my controller, but this Chocobo just seemed to do whatever the fuck it wanted. I'd give you a strategy here. but realistically there isn't one. The bursts seemingly spawn out of nowhere and still track you like a heat seeker missile. The trainer is as annoying as the fucking birds getting in your way more times than not, and the balloons spawn randomly in every run. I hate this fucking mini game. I hate this fucking trainer, and I hate this fucking oversized chicken that more times than not I consider turning into a rotisserie meal. This chocobo controls worse than if you were drunk driving and forgot to have that line of coke to sober you up. I hated doing this the last times I played the game, and I hate it even more now. You can't even reset the race when you can see early on that you won't win. You have to sit through the rest of the fucking race just getting pounded repeatedly by these fucking seagulls. I hate this mini game. With a godly amount of persistence and an unbelievable amount of patience, after failing 30 painful times, on the 31st try I got the best run I could hope for, and the Sun Sigil was finally mine, where I fully upgraded the Kalad Bolg. For Yuna's Nirvana, I had already captured one of each fiend in the Calmlands to get the Maga's sisters, so the chest was already waiting for me in the monster arena. The Moon Crest I had already collected on my playthrough, so only the Moon Sigil left. For this I had to defeat Belgamine's remaining Aeons in Renium Temple. Pretty simple. As a parting gift, Belgamine rewards us with the treasure we needed, a very quick and simple task. Wakka's world champion, however, was far from quick. To get this celestial weapon, as well as Wakka's overdrive options, we have to play a whole lot of Blitzball. We've already had a taste of Blitzball in the story where we need to play some mandatory matches, although my experience at that particular time wasn't great.
Why are we still here? Just to suffer?
Anyway, in preparation for this task, you should have the Jex shot, as it's essential if you want to do this in a fairly quick way. It's literally the most OP ability in Blitzball. It's an almost guaranteed goal every time. As for the team, you can recruit a number of players scattered around the world that are much better than your starting squad, which are pretty much as useful as nipples on a breastplate. Now there is the argument that if you level them up enough, they become great players. However, for the rewards to circulate without having to complete a tournament or league, I had to reset the team to their original levels. So a starter team of great stats was essential. With the team I put together, I was pretty much invincible, usually ending games with scorelines like this. Now to get the weapon itself, we just needed to win a Blitzball tournament and head to the cafe in Lucca. Since I already had the Jupiter crest from my playthrough, I just needed to worry about the Jupiter sigil. And this is where the real work begins. It's obtained as a random Blitzball League prize, but only after you've obtained all of Wakka's overdrives. I'll break down just how much Blitzball I had to play to get this. Between all tournaments and leagues, as well as wins, draws and defeats, I had to play 36 matches, and since it lasts 10 minutes each, 5 minutes each half, I ended up spending a total of 6 hours playing nothing but Blitzball. And although it doesn't sound like much compared to other trophies, after repeating the same playstyle in every game and hearing the same music over and over again, it gets pretty tedious. Don't get me wrong, it's a mode that I really enjoyed playing. However, the number of matches needed to get all the rewards just dulled the experience. On top of that, because you need to reset the player's stats after each tournament, it just made it pointless to keep playing. Regardless, I finally obtained the Jupiter sigil to fully upgrade Wakka's world champion. A fitting name indeed. In the process, I popped the show-off trophy for winning a Blitzball tournament and the Blitzball master for unlocking all of Wakka's slot reels. For Riku's God Hand, all I had to do was input God Hand in the airship and head to the location to find it in a chest. The Mercury crest was already in my possession from my playthrough, so it was the Mercury sigil that I needed to work for. To get this, we had to travel to Bikanel Desert, where after examining the Cactuar stone, we needed to find all 10 different Cactuars scattered across the area, and we needed to play red light, green light. Don't worry, death isn't a risk in this particular universe, unless the Cactuars attack you once you catch them. After finding all 10 unique Cactuars and returning them to the statue, we disperse the sandstorm and find the Mercury sigil in a chest to fully upgrade the God Hand. Another quick and simple task, even though it was a bit annoying having to return the Cactuar one by one. Kimahri's Spirit Lance can be found in the Thunder Plains. We need to follow a Cactuar ghost that appears once the 3 Cactuar statues in the area are activated. We'll come back to this area for an item later on, and arguably the worst trophy in the game. Anyway, I already had the Saturn crest from my playthrough, so I was looking to get the Saturn sigil. For this, we had to complete the annoying butterfly minigame in the Macalania Woods. We have to collect all the blue butterflies without touching any of the red ones within a time limit. If you do touch a red one, you're thrust into battle, which is annoying and also affects your time. What makes this tricky is the static camera, which warps your perception of exactly where the butterflies are. However, after a bit of practice, I eventually figured out the pattern on both routes to collect all blue butterflies needed and obtain the Saturn sigil to fully upgrade Kimahri's Spirit Lance. Lulu's Onion Knight is a pain in the ass to say the least. The weapon itself can be found in Baj Temple, and the Venus Crest I'd already collected on my playthrough. The Venus Sigil, however, is where the problem lies. And I'm sure you've noticed throughout this section of this video that Final Fantasy X has a knack of giving players annoying minigames. And I can confidently say, this is the most annoying one. For this item, you need to dodge lightning 200 times in a row, which means if you've dodged 199 but then get struck, it's back to 0. Now the premise is easy enough. Whenever the screen flashes white in the thunder plains, you press X and Tidus dodges lightning. But these bolts drop at random intervals, and if you press X too soon or too late, you'll get struck. For those smarty pants out there, pressing X continuously also doesn't work. Trust me, I tried. However, there is a fail-proof method to do it, even though a split second is all it takes to mess up your run. If you go to this location in the Thunder Plains and just run back and forth from the tower to the hole on the ground, every time Tidus is just about to step into the hole, the guaranteed lightning bolt, making it a lot easier than relying on random ones throughout the area. It also allows a safe space to rest your eyes in case you need it. I know I did. After dodging 200 lightning bolts in a row, I was awarded the Venus Sigil in a chest just outside the agency, and also popped the Lightning Dancer trophy. With all items obtained, I was able to fully upgrade Lulu's Onion Knight. Finally, Orin's Masamune is all about monster capturing. Yet the actual weapon, you first need the Rusty Sword, found just to the right of the Cavern of the Stolen Faith. I already obtained this as well as the Mars Crest on my playthrough, so I headed over to Mian High Road and offered the Rusty Sword to the statue to obtain the weapon. Since this was the last celestial weapon I needed, I popped the Weapon Master trophy. However, my work was far from done. To get the Mars Sigil, I needed to capture one of every monster in 10 different locations. I'd obviously already captured a fair few for previous tasks, but I still had a long way to go. I decided to start from Besaid, working my way back until I'd completed this task. This is a good time to touch on how good the combat system is in this game. For starters, unlike the previous installments, there's no time limit for when you have to perform your actions. You can take as much time as you need strategizing your next move. For a new daddy with a little baby like me, this is my dream combat system. You can also see whose turn it is to attack on screen and how your actions will affect this in real time. Additionally, the combat soundtrack is incredible. I mentioned how good the soundtrack is earlier, and I stand by what I say. Finally, the overdrives in this game are just absolutely satisfying to perform, especially if you input the minigame inputs perfectly. Gives you a sense of reward when you're dishing out 100 times the damage you need. Not to mention, for the super bosses, these overdrives are a godsend. You can also choose how the overdrive meter fills, which is another great advantage as you can choose different modes for different characters depending on their role in your party. God, I love this game. Anyway, once I'd obtained one of each monster in 10 different locations, I returned to the monster arena to claim my reward and fully upgrade Orin's Masamune, as well as all celestial weapons. Now technically the step is complete, however, I thought it'd be a good idea to create the best armor possible for all characters. A task much more time consuming than I ever thought it would. To start off, I captured 10 monsters in every area to unlock all monster types in the monster arena, which took a monumental amount of time considering it's RNG which monsters appear, especially those fucking sandworms. This was a task I would need to do at some point anyway, not only to save me from doing it later on, but also for the amount of time overall when completing the sphere grid as well. Now in my quest to capture all monsters, I visited the Omega Ruins, arguably the hardest dungeon in the game, with one single save point at the start. To discover this dungeon, we first needed to input some coordinates in our airship. Once here, we have a huge variety of fiends that can wipe the floor with your party members faster than a fat kid clearing cookies at a birthday party. But the most dangerous of them all is the Great Marlboro. This thing will always ambush you here and start the battle with bad breath. As the name indicates, it causes a number of nasty ailments to your party, and if you're unlucky and get confusion, well, you're as good as dead. There are also a couple of unique bosses here that are meant to be a challenge. However, with the amount of leveling up I'd done up to this point, it's fair to say my party was pretty strong. The first was Ultima Weapon, who was absolute fodder, and at the end of the dungeon, we faced Omega Weapon, who although was harder than anything I'd faced up to this point, after a barrage of overdrives followed by Yojimbo Zanmato, it wasn't the challenge the game intended. Technically, Omega Weapon is a super boss, but compared to the ones we'll face later on, it's a pushover, which is why I didn't include it in my list. Now that I've captured 10 of every monster in all areas, it was time to create the ultimate armors for my party, obviously after receiving a number of rewards from the little old man. Now I know I don't need to create special armor for all party members, but you never know what's going to happen in a fight. It's best to be safe than sorry. The first ability I was going to concentrate on was Auto Phoenix. This will get your party to automatically use Phoenix down without wasting a turn. Obviously it consumes the item, so I had to be sure I always had a healthy amount of Phoenix down in my inventory. To get this ability, I needed 20 Mega Phoenixes. Multiply that by 7 for each party member, and I had to grind for 140. Luckily I'd already received 99 of these as one of the rewards in the monster arena, but I just needed to grind out another 41. The easiest way to do this is to bribe ghosts with 199,980 gil for a large amount of them. While doing this, I popped under the table for spending more than 100,000 Jill in bribes. The second ability was Auto Haste. To craft this, you need 80 Chocobo wings for each character. I already had 99 Chocobo wings from the Monster Arena rewards, which meant I needed to farm another 560. You can obtain these from bribing Makia for 360,000 to drop 60 of them. So in total, I needed 4.3 million Jill. That's a lot of dough. Which brings me to my next grinding task, to farm Jill. The easiest way I found was to defeat the Mimic in the Omega Ruins with Riku's God Hand equipped for the Gillionaire skill. They're random encounters that can appear alongside the Zaros as a chest. You need to steal from the chest and hope you get nothing to spawn the Mimic. For every win, you'll get roughly 100,000, so in total, I had to kill roughly 43 for the Auto Haste skill alone. Finally, for the Auto Protect skill, I needed 80 Light Curtain for each character. I received 99 from the Monster Arena, which is obviously only enough for one character, so for the rest, I had to farm them on killing Fafnir. This is one nasty beast with a lot of health and an annoying triple attack that wrecks your party faster than you can blink. Luckily, after reaching a certain power level, you can pretty much just use Aeons and overdrives to kill it. For every win, you receive 40 Light Curtain, which meant I had to defeat Fafnir roughly 14 times. Now that my endgame armor was created, I could officially mark this step as complete. On to step 4, and if you thought that last step had an unnecessary amount of grinding, then prepare yourself for this one, because this step is even worse. Firstly, if you've never played this game, you might be thinking, what the hell is a sphere grid? Well, in Final Fantasy X, you don't level up in the traditional way. You still gain levels by earning XP, sure, but you use those levels to unlock different nodes in the sphere grid to raise your party's stats and learn ability. Quite honestly, I love it. However, to complete the sphere grid for all characters isn't as simple as it sounds. For starters, you'll need to power level. The fastest way I've found to obtain levels is to craft weapons that absolutely break how much AP you obtain with your triple AP, overdrive AP, and triple overdrive skills. I'm not going to go into details in the specifics of how you get these weapons and how to customize them, because there's a ton of guides online, and definitely not because I fucked it up and earned less AP than what I could have with each battle. But trust me, even if I had done this the proper way, it would have still taken a stupid amount of time. The only thing I'll say is that triple AP weapons can be dropped by killing One Eye, which in my case, I obtained for Tidus. And I'm only mentioning this because while doing this, I popped the Mega Strike trophy for dealing 99,999 damage in one single attack. Anyway, once you have the weapons crafted, all you need to do is fight Don Tomberry in the Monster Arena with the Stoic Overdrive mode on your primary character and the rest of the characters on Comrade. Once the fight is over, which by the way, you don't even have to kill him, you can just flee. Wow! With the leveling issue solved, it's time to talk about the spheres. You know, the items we need to actually activate the different nodules. To get these, we needed to farm them from a number of monsters. Luckily, because I had all fiends available in the Monster Arena, I didn't have to go looking for them. The hardest and most time-consuming of them all is the Fortune Spheres, which you can only get by defeating Earth Eater. Not a hard battle if you have a healthy amount of Phoenix Downs with the Auto Phoenix ability, but it can be a very long fight. To add insult to injury, you only get a single sphere, or two for an overkill.
Disgusting.
And the greatest sphere to get lock spheres. Same rules apply to this monster. These raise your character's luck, which is a stat that makes your characters gods. So no wonder they're not easy to come across. The others can be easily farmed by using the desired extract skill on Kotos, and then kill him for 40 a pop. After a very large amount of hours, I'd finally unlocked all modules for all characters. But we're not done yet. Oh no. For the trophies, we need to also unlock all blank modules for all characters as well. This feels like being on an open road to a dead end. Anyway, the advantage is that you can choose what stat to level up. The disadvantage is that there are a stupid amount of free nodules. The strength sphere is dropped by the Juggernaut to increase our attack. The defense sphere is dropped by the Tank Kit to increase our defense. The magic defense sphere is dropped by One Eye to increase our magic defense. The accuracy sphere is dropped by the Hornet to increase our accuracy. The evasion sphere is dropped by the Pteryx to increase our evasion. The agility sphere is dropped by Fenrir to increase our agility. And the magic sphere is dropped by the Jumbo Flan to increase our magic. Goes without saying, the stronger I got from leveling up, the easier and faster killing the enemies became. However, this still took a stupid amount of hours. Nonetheless, I completed the sphere grid for all characters to pop the Sphere Master and the Perfect Sphere Master trophies. Before I moved on, I took care of the last miscellaneous trophy for obtaining all of Kamari's overdrives. I'd been collecting these throughout my playthrough by using Lancet on different monsters, but the only one I had left to get was Bad Breath. Once I used the Lancet on Marlboro, the trophy was mine. And with that, step 4 was also complete. Finally, we're at the last step. From this point forward, it goes without saying that every single boss we'll face hits harder than a family whacking a Mexican piñata on the 5th of May, because they all have the potential to one-shot the entire party, even with all characters at Ultra Instinct level. Now there are quite a few to get through, but luckily I have my ace of spades ready if the time arrives. The first super boss I chose was Nemesis. Now to unlock Nemesis, I first had to defeat all species conquest, arena conquest, and original creation fiends in the monster arena. Probably a good time to mention how impressive the variety of monsters in this game offers, especially considering this is originally a PS2 title. And the devs wanted you to know that by forcing you to capture 10 of each monster. Anyway, some of these monsters I'd already defeated while completing the previous steps, and honestly, with how powerful my party was, this didn't pose much of an issue. My strategy was simple. I mainly used Tidus and Waka, and every other character were there to cast auto life or use Entrust for their overdrives. Every now and then I'd use an Aeon to change things up a bit. Play the compilation. Once Nemesis was available, I pretty much used the same strategy. It failed. With Nemesis out of the way, I concentrated on the Dark Aeons, which would eventually lead me to Penance. But we're not there yet. As a farewell to this amazing masterpiece, I decided I'll fight them legitimately and refrain from using the cheesiest of cheeses. I always made sure my party all had full overdrives and used the same tactic as I did when I was unlocking Nemesis, except if the Dark Aeons were about to use their overdrives. Then I'd summon one of my own Aeons to eat the damage. Shameful, I know, but there's a platinum at stake. I started with Dark Valor 4, who can be found in Besaid Village. This thing literally flies at you as if it was possessed by the Kool-Aid guy, thinking you're a wall. To be fair, this fight was a pretty straightforward one since it doesn't have that much health. A single overdrive from Tidus was all it took. I move on to Dark Ifrit, who is found in the Sanubia Desert, after your kind nature is exploited by some Albed. Again, it doesn't have that much health, so an overdrive from Tidus and another from Waka was enough to do the job. I chose Dark Ixion to tackle next, who is found in the Thunder Plains. What a surprise. The only catch here is that you need to defeat it twice. However, the same overdrive strategy applies, which made it a walk in the park. Next was Dark Shiva, who is found in the Macalania Temple. You guessed it, this was like fishing with dynamite. Dark Bahamut is found in the Zanakan Ruins. However, a more strategic approach was needed for this fight. Not only did he have more health than the previous Dark Aeons, but on every 5th hit it takes, it'll use Impulse, which dishes out massive damage to the party. Whenever he was about to use this move, I summoned an Aeon to take the hit. Same applied when he was about to use his overdrive. Eventually, after a few of my own overdrives, he was eating dirt. Dark Yojimbo is found in the Cavern of the Stolen Faith, the exact same place you obtain him for yourself. But to get rid of it for good, we had to defeat it 5 times in a row without dying or exiting the game. The same strategy as Dark Bahamut was used, but the fights lasted longer since I had to wait until my overdrives were recharged while in battle. I quickly found out that it was essential for my party to have auto life at all times, because if it decided to use Wakizashi, it would wipe out my party faster than a power cut. Regardless, after besting the beast 5 times in a row, it was gone for good. Only 2 to go. To unlock Dark Anima, you need to do Waka's ball game again in Mount Gagazet Cave. This will make it appear in the base of Mount Gagazet. I reverted back to my original strat of Waka's overwhelming overdrives, but I didn't realize Anima had a trump card of its own up its restrained sleeve. Anima's attack petrifies and instantly shatters whoever it hits, making that character unusable for the rest of the fight. And guess which character it chose? Well, this obviously meant war. 250k gil later. Finally, last in line were the Dark Magus sisters, who are found in the Mihen Ruins. You can either fight them one by one, or all 3 at once, depending on how many of the priestesses you manage to run from. However, I'd already pumped way too many hours into this game to waste any time, so 250k later. With all Dark Aeons dispatched, the monster emerged. The monstrous identity with a reputation of hardest boss in the whole game that can potentially take over an hour, Penance. Now before we take it on, I'd just like to say, even though the grinding was excruciating and the mini-games left me angrier than the homeless guy at my local supermarket watching me ride the coin-operated horse after I told him I had no change, this game is an absolute masterpiece, and I recommend everyone play it if they get the chance. Whether you're a fan of JRPGs or not, I'm confident you'll have an amazing time. The Platinum itself definitely isn't for everyone, considering how time-consuming it is, as well as the repetitive tasks overstaying their welcome, but take that away, and you've got a game that delivers a cinema-worthy story with gameplay that allows you to play at your own pace and in your own style. This game is well worth playing, even if you're not going to go for the Platinum. Just the experience alone is worth it. Now in my case, I am going for the Platinum, So let's get on with it. Penance was the last challenge that stood between me and my soon-to-be shiny digital reward. With my skills honed, my characters maxed out, and equipped with the best armor and weapons in the game, I was ready to battle it out with this colossal beast. However, fighting this boss for what could have been an hour while having Zanmato in my arsenal would be like trying to eat ice cream with chopsticks. You can probably do it, but you won't enjoy it.
Ain't nobody got time for that.
So,
Bruh.
okay. I was ready to battle it out with this colossal beast. However, I gave Yojimbo an offer he couldn't refuse. In using the dirtiest, stinkiest cheese known to you, Yevon, the Perseverance trophy was mine, and so was this long and arduous platinum that I will cherish forever in my collection. This was my platinum number 132 that took me 427 hours over the course of 10 years and 3 months throughout 2 playthroughs. Platinum that takes dedication, patience, and skill. I love you, Final Fantasy X, and I always will. Goodbye. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to leave a like and check out some of my other videos here. I'll catch you guys on the next one. GuyFarruski out.